What do I mean by association? You could also say relation. Let's say in our project, and that is basically our project, we have products, users, cards, and at some point also orders. Now, if we want to connect all these things on and define how they work together, then a product would probably belong to many cards because our users will have cards, therefore we have multiple users, multiple cards, and therefore a product can belong to many cards because, of course, different users can add the same product to their cards. Each user only has one card though, so this is how we could relate that. A product also can be part of multiple orders, and a user can have multiple orders because you typically order more than one thing. A user can also own multiple products in a sense of this user created this product. So not own it in the sense of I bought it, but in the sense of, hey, I offered this product, I created it in the shop. This is a rough outline of how we can communicate or relate different models. And this is what we can also reflect in Sequelize. There, I'll go to my app.js file here. Let's close the views. I'll go to my app.js file, and before I sync all my data to the database, I want to define my models. So for this, I will add more imports, and I will import my product model by requiring this from the models file, and there the product file, the models folder and the product file. And I'll import my user model from the user file in the models folder. With the two models imported, we can relate them. And I will relate them here in the same place where I sync Sequelize, but before I sync it. Here I can basically say that a product belongs to a user. Now, you can learn way more about these relations in the Sequelize documentation. There's a whole article about associations, which kind of associations exist, and how you define them in Sequelize and which effect this has. I will show you some important implications in this model, of course. So back to our code. We are now setting up that for Sequelize, a product belongs to a user. And this is now talking about a user created this product. We're not talking about purchases at this point. We can also configure this by passing a second argument, which is optional. Here we can define how this relation should be managed. And very important, we can define so-called constraints, set them to true, and, for example, say that on delete. So if a user is deleted, what should happen to any connected products? And here we can say cascade, which simply means, well, the deletion would then also be executed for the product. So if we delete a user, any products related to the user would also be gone. This is totally optional, and you definitely need to learn a bit more about SQL to fully understand your options here. This is beyond the scope of this course, but this can all be done with Sequelize. And now we got this relation set up. You can also define the inverse and say that one user has many products, because one user can, of course, add more than one product to the shop. Now, this is optional. You don't need that. You can basically replace belongs to with a has many call, but here I also like to define both directions to really make it clear how this relation works. Now, with this being set up, Sequelize Sync will not just create tables for our models, but also define the relations in our database as we defined them here. The one problem we have right now is that we already created the products table, and it therefore will not overwrite it with the new information. And we can ensure that it will by setting force to true. Of course, a setting you wouldn't really use in production because you don't always want to overwrite your tables all the time. But here during development, I want to reflect my new changes, so I will set this to true. And therefore, after restarting, we indeed see a couple of statements were executed. First of all, it dropped any existing tables. And then it created a new table, users, with all the setup. And then it also creates a new products table. And besides adding all the fields there, it also defined that there is a new field, the user ID field, which is an integer, and which is a foreign key that references the ID field in the users table. and that on delete it should cascade, and on update cascade is the default. So this is some meta setup in the database, which SQLize now also added to connect our tables there too. And if we go to Workbench and we right click on our database and set call refresh all, we see there are 2 tables now. And indeed, if we inspect products, we see that our product is gone because it recreated the table. But now, besides created ad and updated ad that were added by SQLize, there is a user ID field which was also added by SQLize. And this will automatically be populated by SQLize too once we create products that are related to a user. So let's make sure that we have a user, because right now that table is empty, and that we then can connect users and products in our app.